So you've got this corruption of Adam Schiff lying about the President of the United States, and in fact, rather than being a perp, as I call it, the President is a crime victim. And it's further confirmed in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court issued an order just this week, yesterday, confirming that the Justice Department has disavowed 2 of the spy warrants. I want to bring you up to date on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court because Judicial Watch exposed that the court's the problem as well. How did we figure that out? Well, first of all, it was quite obvious when looking at the FISA applications that they were garbage. They should have just been rejected on their face. Secondly, we figured out that the FISA courts, and it was Judicial Watch who figured this out, we actually had to sue to try to get the information. We figured out the FISA courts held not one hearing on the spy warrants targeting Trump and the president, as both as candidate and as president. Now, these FISA courts are trying to provide oversight of the FISA process, and they allow warrants to go through targeting the President of the United States, and they don't have a hearing on it? That's negligent, don't you think? And then they know 2 years ago there were reasons to suspect that the FISA courts were defrauded by the lies of the FBI, Justice Department under Obama, and then, frankly, under President Trump, by the coup cabal running the Justice Department and the FBI at the time. They didn't do anything about it. They waited to the IG report to tell them things that they knew or should have known for at least 2 years. So their response, the court's response, was to tell the FBI, I want you to give me a report as to why I should believe anything you say on these warrants, and any warrants, because of the criminality uncovered in these IG reports and the lies and misstatements uncovered in these IG reports. Obviously, I'm summarizing what the court told the FBI, but I think it's a fair summary. And during this time period, Chief Justice Roberts appointed, so the FISA court, just so you know, it's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court. I call it FISA court because that's what it's typically known as. And there's a set of judges that are on the court appointed by the Chief Justice of the United States. So the head of the FISA court recently just retired from the head of he stepped down as head. She was running the court during this, as I said, this period of fraud. And Chief Justice Roberts appointed Judge Boasberg, who is an Obama appointee, to be the presiding judge of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Now, Judge Boasberg is, as I said, an Obama appointee. We've been before him a few times. He sometimes gives us rulings we like. He often gives us rulings we don't like. And in many ways, like too many judges here, both Republican and Democrat, they're way too deferential to the government. Way too deferential to the government. D.C. is a government town. So the independence of the courts, that's a big lie. The courts aren't independent. The courts too often work hand in glove with the government against the interests of the American people and contrary to law. Well, at least that's been my experience at Judicial Watch. So Director Wray gave a response as ordered by the court to reassure the court what he was doing to fix the problem. And Wray basically said, oh, we're going to do some training, and we got some memos out, and we're reminding everyone what they need to do, and we're adding different layers of bureaucracy in to make sure this mistake doesn't happen again. No word that anyone's fired. No word that anyone's getting prosecuted. Basically, no admission. And to the degree anyone thinks of it as an apology, that's a scam. But disturbingly, Judge Boasberg appointed an Obama official who worked in the National Security Division. He's an expert on FISA. But after he retired from the Obama administration, he became an anti-Trump activist and was defending the FISA issue, even as Nunes was highlighting the corruption. So he was an anti-Trump activist on the other side of those trying to highlight FISA corruption. And Judge Boasberg appointed this individual, whose name is escaping me now, and I don't want to tell you what his name is because I'll probably name someone else who's not the guy. But you can look it up. And he named him as an amicus for the court. So he was basically given official designation by the court as a friend of the court to help the court analyze the FBI's response here, or efforts at reform. And so people are like, what are you doing, Judge Boasberg? What are you doing, Judge? Couldn't you find an expert who hasn't commented and attack those criticizing this FISA process, like Devin Nunes, who's been vindicated? And in appointing this person, he's further undermining, the court's further undermined, don't you think, the confidence of Americans in the court to fairly administer justice? That's the standard. The courts rely, and all the ethics rules and everything the courts do, it has to be done with the thought that people should have confidence in the fair administration of justice. Now, do I think Judge Boasberg purposely went out and found an anti-Trump activist? No. I mean, this is a well-connected individual who is a subject matter expert, and he made a terrible mistake in doing so. Maybe I'm being too charitable. I've saved all my outrage for Adam Schiff. I'm sparing some on the FISA court here. But, you know, all that aside, people are debating, well, should the president reauthorize the FISA court process, or are the reforms necessary or sufficient? That doesn't matter. There were rules in place to prevent the corruption that occurred. But because for political reasons they lied and subverted the rule of law, subverted justice, obstructed justice, lied to the courts, engaged in criminal activity, it's already outlawed. And the response, the typical response in D.C. is, let's make more laws, but let's not prosecute those who violated the laws. So if you want FISA court reform, if you want to be sure that you won't be spied on illegally, or you want to be sure no other presidential candidate is subjected to criminal spying by his political opposition running the current administration, like Barack Obama did to President Trump, you got to put people in jail. That's the only way it's going to stop. It's the only way it's going to stop. So over the next few months, you're going to hear debates on whether the FISA court should be reauthorized. Don't be distracted, America. The debate shouldn't be whether the court should be authorized. The debate should be who should be prosecuted for illegally spying on President Trump. So this is what the order says, confirming the criminality. Order regarding handling and disposition of information. Thanks in large part to the work of the Office of Inspector General, U.S. Department of Justice, the court has received notice of material misstatements and omissions in the applications filed by the government in the above captioned dockets. In re Carter Page, a U.S. person as the docket entry. DOJ assesses that with respect to the applications in docket numbers 17-375 and 17-679, quote, if not earlier, there was insufficient predication to establish probable cause to believe that Carter Page was acting as an agent of a foreign power, close quote. And that was in a December 9th letter. So they told the court there was probable cause. And they finally told the court that at least two in the applications, and the two applications, so remember, there was the initial application in the fall of 2016 before the election, and there were 3 renewals. And the Justice Department, interpreting this, has just told the FISA court that the 2 latest applications, the one signed by Rod Rosenstein, I think the other one was signed by Andrew McCabe, maybe signed both on, McCabe may have had a hand in both of them, I don't have the documents in front of me, signed during the Trump administration, application 3 and 4, were garbage, were lies. The government further reports that the FBI has agreed to, quote, sequester all collection the FBI acquired pursuant to the court's authorization. Let me start over. The government further reports that the FBI has agreed, quote, to sequester all collection the FBI acquired pursuant to the court's authorization in the above listed 4 docket numbers targeting Carter Page, pending further review of the OIG report and the outcome of related investigations and any litigation, close quote. The government has not described what steps are involved in such sequestration, or when it will be completed. It has, however, undertaken to provide an update to the court when the FBI completes the sequestration and to update the court on the disposition of the sequestered collection at the conclusion of related investigations and any litigation. To date, no such update has been received. So basically, the FBI, because they had valid warrants, have agreed to sequester, wall off the material gathered from the warrants, the spy garbage they picked up on Trump and Carter Page and who knows who else, because they're not allowed to have it, so they had to kind of wall it off. And the court's like, they haven't told me what they're doing. And they basically admitted the 2 other applications they haven't, quote, made an official acknowledgement on yet. They can't even be sure that they should be able to use information from there. So they're going to wall that off. The court understands the government to have concluded, in view of the material, misstatements and omissions, that the court's authorizations in docket numbers, the 2 latest applications, were not valid. The government apparently does not take a position on the validity of the authorizations in the first 2 applications, as I said, but intends to sequester information acquired pursuant to those dockets in the same manner as information acquired pursuant to the subsequent dockets, which is what I just said. Title I of the Foreign, this is the criminality. Title I of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, codified as amended, and he quotes the law, or cites to the law, governs electronic surveillance conducted for foreign intelligence purposes. It requires minimization procedures that are reasonably designed to minimize the acquisition and retention and prohibit the dissemination of non-publicly available information concerning unconsenting United States persons, consistent with the need of the United States to obtain, produce, and disseminate foreign intelligence information. It also makes it a crime to intentionally disclose or use information obtained under color of law by electronic surveillance, knowing or having reason to know that the information was obtained through electronic surveillance not authorized by FISA or other express statutory authorization. And then the court goes on to say, tell me what you're doing. Tell me how you're fixing it. Tell me how you're protecting this information. What other investigations have been impacted by this? You know what's been impacted by this? Your country, your republic, the presidency. He's being impeached based on this whole theory, these fraud dossiers. Because the Ukraine questioning has to do with this as well. We don't know whether FISA warrants there were. Was Flynn the subject of a FISA warrant? Remember, there was more than one person who was investigated as a result of this scam Russia case. Flynn, Manafort. The 4th FISA application was signed off during the Mueller investigation. Everything Mueller did has now been tainted. I've been telling you that since the get-go. Now it's confirmed by the Justice Department. Now it's confirmed by the Justice Department. The President of the United States has more than enough justification, not that he needs any because the Constitution gives him plenary power to do this, to pardon everyone caught up in the Mueller investigation. He can pardon Flynn, he can pardon Manafort, he can pardon everyone. Because the investigations are tainted by criminality. And I'm still waiting for the court to say, I'm instituting criminal proceedings related to obstruction of the court process, the misuse of this surveillance. I read you the part about minimization. Do you think they minimized the collection of information on Carter Page and Donald Trump? Of course not. They were desperate. So as the corrupt liberal media that collaborated with the gang disseminating and leaking classified information that was also misleading and lying to the court would have you focus on the impeachment based on nothing, we have further confirmation the President of the United States is a crime victim. So I don't know what Durham's doing, but they better get to go. And in the meantime, Judicial Watch will do, we've got our FOIAs and requests about all of this corruption, much of which we exposed before the IG report did. Certainly more before the FISA court admitted that there was misconduct here, or acknowledged it. So the crisis continues, folks.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.